Hi, it's me, Jacqueline. Welcome to my channel. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and join me at Patreon. Link in the description. That evening, I sat with Steven as he combed through online forums and social media, searching for any sign of what Grayson might be planning. Around midnight, he found it. There, he said, pointing to a post on a niche gossip site. The headline read, "Exclusive. The real story behind Lexi Montgomery's transformation." My heart sank as I read the post. It was vague, filled with speculation and half-truths, but it was enough to set the stage for Grayson's narrative. "He's testing the waters," Steven said grimly. "Seeing how people react before he goes all in. What do we do?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We fight fire with fire," Shirley said, joining us at the table. "If Grayson wants to play dirty, we'll show him we're not afraid to get our hands a little messy." The plan was risky but necessary. Dana agreed to write a follow-up piece, this time focusing on the broader issues of privacy, ethics, and the lengths people like Grayson would go to for a story. We also reached out to a few of Grayson's past victims, giving them a platform to share their experiences. As the days passed, the tension only grew. Every time I opened my phone, I braced myself for new developments, new threats. But slowly, the tide began to turn. Dana's second article went live on a Monday morning, and by lunchtime, it was trending. The stories from Grayson's other targets painted a damning picture, one that was hard to ignore. At school, the whispers began to change. Instead of questioning my authenticity, people started questioning Grayson's motives. Lydia beamed as she showed me a screenshot of one particularly supportive comment. "Lexi's braver than any of us. Grayson's just a bully with a keyboard." The victory felt small but significant. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just surviving, I was winning. The next week felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for the ground to crumble beneath me. Dana's second article had gained traction, and Grayson's reputation was taking hits from every angle. The stories from his past victims had gone viral, painting him as a manipulative opportunist who preyed on vulnerable people for his own gain. But despite the growing support for me, the anxiety never left. I couldn't shake the feeling that Grayson had one last move to make, a final card to play. Shirley and Steven were relentless in their preparation, combing through every possible lead, but even they couldn't predict what he might do next. At school, the atmosphere was shifting. Lydia stuck to me like glue, deflecting questions and steering me away from nosy classmates. Richard, too, had become a constant presence, his quiet support a source of comfort even when he didn't say much. By Friday, the whispers had quieted, replaced by something more tangible, curiosity. People weren't just talking about me anymore, they were talking to me. Girls who'd never given me the time of day stopped me in the hall to compliment my courage. A teacher pulled me aside after class to say how proud she was of me. Even the principal made a point of telling me that the school valued diversity and inclusivity. It was overwhelming, but for the first time, it felt like the tide was truly turning. That afternoon, as I walked to the parking lot, I saw Grayson's black sedan parked across the street. My heart sank, but I forced myself to keep walking, my head held high. I wasn't going to let him see that he still scared me. When I got home, Shirley and Steven were already waiting. The tension in the room was palpable, and I knew before they said anything that something had happened. "He's going live," Steven said, his voice grim. "Live?" I echoed, confusion mixing with dread. "Grayson's holding a press conference tomorrow," Shirley explained. "He's promising to reveal the truth about you. He's trying to regain control of the narrative." The words hit like a punch to the gut. After everything we'd done to expose him, he was still trying to paint me as the villain. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice trembling. "We fight back," Shirley said, her tone steady. "We'll hold our own press conference. If Grayson wants a showdown, we'll give him one." The plan came together quickly. Dana agreed to moderate the event, ensuring that our story would be told fairly and accurately. Shirley and Steven worked late into the night, reaching out to our allies and preparing statements. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I was walking into battle. Shirley had laid out a simple but elegant outfit for me, something that projected confidence without being flashy. As I got ready, she reminded me to stay calm and focused. "You've already won, Lexi," she said, her voice soft but firm. "This is just the final push." When we arrived at the community center, the room was already buzzing with reporters and supporters. Dana met us at the door, her calm demeanor a reassuring presence. "You ready?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, forcing a smile. The press conference started smoothly. Dana introduced me and outlined the key points of my story, emphasizing the support I'd received and the challenges I'd overcome. Then it was my turn to speak. Standing at the podium, I felt the weight of every eye in the room on me. My hands trembled as I adjusted the microphone, but as I began to speak, the fear melted away. I talked about my journey, about the people who had stood by me, and about the importance of living authentically despite the risks. When I finished, the room erupted into applause. Tears pricked my eyes as I stepped back, overwhelmed by the support. But the moment was short-lived. As Dana began taking questions from the reporters, one voice cut through the crowd like a knife. "Lexi, what about Alex?" My stomach dropped as Grayson stepped forward, a smirk on his face and a folder in his hand. He held it up for everyone to see. "I have here documents that paint a very different picture of who Lexi Montgomery really is," he said, his voice dripping with smugness. The room fell silent, all eyes shifting to me. I froze, the panic rising in my chest like a tidal wave. But before I could speak, Shirley stepped forward. "Let me see that," she said, her voice calm but commanding. Grayson handed her the folder, his smirk widening. "Be my guest." Shirley flipped through the pages, her expression unreadable. Then she looked up, her eyes locking onto Grayson's. "This is garbage," she said, tossing the folder onto the table. "Half of this is fabricated, and the rest is irrelevant. You've been exposed as a liar and a bully, Grayson. No one's buying your story anymore." The room erupted into chaos, reporters shouting questions and snapping photos. Grayson's smirk faltered, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. Dana quickly regained control, redirecting the focus back to me and the positive message we were trying to share. By the end of the event, it was clear that Grayson's attempt to derail me had backfired spectacularly. That evening, as we sat in the living room, exhausted but triumphant, Shirley raised a glass of sparkling cider. "To Lexi," she said, "for standing tall when it mattered most." I smiled, the warmth of their support washing over me. For the first time, I felt like the fight was truly over. The aftermath of the press conference was a whirlwind. My social media exploded with messages of support, shares of Dana's article, and photos from the event. For the first time, the narrative felt like it was mine, my story told my way. Grayson's last-ditch effort had fallen flat, and while I didn't expect him to disappear completely, the tide had definitively turned. Shirley and Stephen insisted on a quiet dinner at home to celebrate, but even in the cozy bubble of the kitchen, I couldn't shake the lingering tension. Grayson might have lost this round, but something told me he wasn't finished. The next morning, I woke to a text from Lydia. "Everyone's talking about you. You're kind of famous now. How does it feel?" I smiled despite myself and replied, "Weird. Call me later." At school, the atmosphere was different. The whispers and stares were still there, but they felt less hostile, more curious. A few classmates even came up to me between classes to say they'd seen the press conference and admired my courage. Lydia found me at lunch, grinning as she slid into the seat across from me. "You're a celebrity," she teased, holding up her phone. "You're all over my feed." "Great," I muttered, though her excitement was infectious. Richard joined us a few minutes later, his usual laid-back demeanor tinged with something more serious. "Hey, Lexi," he said, sitting down beside me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, surprised by the question. "Why?" "Because this is a lot," he said simply. "And I just wanted to make sure you're handling it okay." I smiled, grateful for his thoughtfulness. "I'm fine." "Really?" But the truth was, I wasn't entirely fine. The weight of everything Grayson, the press, the constant attention, was exhausting, and the fear that it could all come crashing down hadn't left me. That evening, I sat in my room, scrolling through messages and comments until one caught my eye. It was from an account I didn't recognize, and the message was short: "You're braver than I ever was." Thank you. I stared at it for a long time, something about the words sticking with me. I replied cautiously, "Thank you. Can I ask who this is?" The response came quickly: "Someone who understands what you're going through. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." I didn't know what to make of it, but the kindness in the message brought tears to my eyes. For all the negativity and challenges, there was something powerful about connecting with others who understood. The next day, Shirley called a meeting in the living room. Stephen was there, as was Dana, who'd come to check in. "Grayson's gone quiet," Shirley said, looking around the room. "Too quiet. You think he's planning something?" Dana asked. "Maybe," Shirley said. "But we're not waiting for him to make the next move. We're going to end this once and for all." The plan was bold: a live Q&A streamed online, where I would answer questions directly from viewers. It was a risky move, but it offered the chance to solidify my story and put any lingering doubts to rest. "You don't have to do this," Stephen said as we went over the details. "If it's too much, we'll find another way." "I want to do it," I said firmly. "If this is how we stop Grayson, then I'm in." The days leading up to the event were a blur of preparation. Shirley and Stephen worked tirelessly to moderate questions and ensure everything would run smoothly, while Dana coached me on how to handle tough inquiries. When the night of the Q&A arrived, I was nervous but determined. The setup was simple: a desk, a camera, and a laptop to display the questions, but the stakes felt enormous. As the stream went live, viewers poured in, the comment section scrolling so quickly I could barely keep up. The questions started easy. "What's your favorite hobby? What inspires you?" But soon, they delved deeper. "How did you know you wanted to be Lexi?" one asked. I took a deep breath before answering. "It wasn't a single moment," I said. "It was a journey, one that took a lot of courage and support. But when I finally embraced who I was, it felt like coming home." The support in the comments was overwhelming, but then a question appeared that made my heart race. "What would you say to people like Grayson who think you're just pretending?" I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. But then I thought of Shirley, Stephen, Lydia, and everyone who had stood by me. "I'd say they're wrong," I said finally. "And I'd tell them to look at the people in their own lives, the ones who are trying to find themselves, and ask if they'd want them to face the same judgment. We're all just trying to live our truth. That's not something to be afraid of." The applause in the room behind the camera was almost as loud as the flood of supportive comments. By the time the stream ended, I felt lighter, like a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had been lifted. The live Q&A changed everything. For the first time, I felt like the tide had fully turned. Messages of support poured in, flooding my social media with words of encouragement. People were tagging me in posts about bravery, authenticity, and the importance of standing up for what's right. But even as I basked in the newfound support, I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that it wasn't over. Grayson's silence wasn't a sign of defeat, it was the calm before the storm. The morning after the stream, Shirley was up early, typing furiously at her laptop. Stephen was on the phone in the kitchen, his voice low but intense. The air in the house felt charged, like we were all bracing for impact. "What's going on?" I asked as I poured myself a cup of coffee. Shirley glanced up, her expression unreadable. "Grayson's trying to regroup. We've been monitoring a few of his contacts, and it looks like he's planning something big. We're not sure what yet." My stomach sank. "How do we stop him?" Stephen walked in, setting his phone on the counter. "We don't," he said simply. "Not yet. Let him make the first move. The more desperate he gets, the more mistakes he'll make." Waiting wasn't easy, but I trusted them. In the meantime, I threw myself into school and tried to focus on the good. Lydia and Richard were my anchors, their steady presence a reminder that I wasn't alone. But then, 3 days later, Grayson struck. I was in the middle of history class when my phone buzzed. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something told me to check. It was a text from Dana. "Grayson's gone public. He's holding a live broadcast tonight. Be ready." The words blurred as panic set in. Shirley and Stephen had warned me this might happen, but seeing it spelled out in black and white made it all too real. By the time I got home, Shirley was already in action. She'd set up a makeshift command center in the living room, her laptop open alongside stacks of notes and printouts. Stephen was pacing, his expression dark. "He's calling it an exposé," Shirley said as I sat down. "He's claiming he has evidence that will prove you're not who you say you are." My chest tightened. "What kind of evidence?" "Fabricated, most likely," Stephen said. "But that doesn't matter. What matters is how we respond." They walked me through the plan, a coordinated response on social media, pre-written statements from allies, and, if necessary, a legal threat to shut him down. Dana was already reaching out to her network to ensure our side of the story would be heard. The hours ticked by slowly, each minute dragging as we prepared for the inevitable. By the time Grayson's broadcast went live, the tension in the room was palpable. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access.